Perfection could never earn it. You give what we don't deserve, and you take the broken things and raise them to glory. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly place, undefeated, with the one who has conquered it all. And now I can finally see it. You're teaching me how to receive it. So let all the striving cease. This is my victory. You are my champion. Giants fall when you stand undefeated. Every battle you've won. I am who you say I am. You crown me with confidence. I am seated in the heavenly
God, we just want to sit in your presence and know that you don't feel any bad way towards us, God, that we're your chosen children, that you love us unconditionally even though we don't deserve it at all, that we sin and sin again, but yet you still love us, and that is a gift we never could earn or deserve. So this is our gift to you, God. This is the thing we feel we can give back. This is the way we try to earn what you did for us. God, I know that whatever we do will never be comparable to what you've done. And I just want to say thank you for that. Thank you for everything that you do for us and letting us just sit in your presence, and you could turn us away and you could shun us from the light and you could just cut us off completely, but you decide to forgive and forgive and forgive and forgive. And we decide to keep just messing up, God. And you say, just come back to me. Just run back to me. Your arms are always open wide, but we're so scared to do that in middle school service or on Sunday because we're afraid of what our friends are going to say or how we're going to look, God. I just want my posture to look like yours. Just arms open wide, ready for your gentle but overwhelming embrace. God, you are just more than enough. Thank you. All right, guys, feel free to go back to your seats. Thank you, Gabby. Thank you, Ignacio and Lizzie. Can we give it up for our worship team? Yeah, all right, we got a bumper. Do we? What's up, guys? How's it going? Hello, thank you, guys. Man, that was a crazy game. I saw Maggie doing it in Beach Park Wednesday, and I was like, I need to bring that to the middle schoolers. I need to see Kayla destroy someone. And she did. You did a really good job. I'm proud of you, Kayla. And you as well. I don't know your name. No. Thank you, no. So I want to start off this sermon by asking you guys just a little question, a little doodad, a little question. Have you guys ever had a question that that it seemed like nobody could answer? Like for me, when I was younger, it was like, bro, Santa Claus, real or not real? My parents were like, well, it says the name on the tag. I'm like, Mom, Dad, no. I know you can just write that. And yeah, I didn't really understand how like printing stuff worked, and it looked like super like detailed. So I was like, that's gotta be Santa. But stuff like that. So a few other questions I asked when I was younger were like, why are certain things the way they are? Like, why is the alphabet in the order it is? If you think about it, let's just take a second and think about it. The alphabet doesn't need to be in that order, right? Like, it makes sense with numbers, but alphabet A, B, C, D, what consistency do you see there? Why is it in that order? I think whoever decided that should be imprisoned immediately, because obviously they decided that they had enough power to do so. But the next question, sorry, I'm a big dude, so I breathe heavy. But the next question is, why is the color yellow called yellow? Exactly, like, why is it yellow? Why that's I know that like a lot of our like words come from like Latin and whatnot, but why yellow? Well, how do we land on yellow? Or like next to it, orange. Why is the word orange a fruit but also a color? And why didn't they do that with the rest of the fruits? That's literally the point I was about to make. Lizzie, see, we're a whole new level. But like, think about it. Why isn't like, yeah, so yellow or bananas have like a little bit of green. So like, oh, it's not fully yellow, but neither is an orange. If you've seen an orange and it's got like little star thingy on top, it's green. You know what I'm talking about? You see, like, it's green. It's not all orange. precisely my point. So you guys are on top. I might have to come up with deeper questions. But speaking of, sometimes we see things around the world that make us pause and ask questions. But those aren't the biggest, deepest questions we ask, right? As we grow older, we get more information, like, we start to question things. We start to, like, just be confused by why things are the way they are. So, now I know that questions like these aren't the biggest, deepest questions, but there's much going on around our world that'll cause us to ask bigger questions, especially when these things don't seem right. That's why we're doing this series called Do Something. And so we're going to talk about how we can see and respond to that kind of stuff. What we can do about the injustice happening around us. So for all you that don't know what injustice is, you're like, I've heard the word, but I don't know if I exactly know what it means. And there's a lot of it that's like now in like our current like social situation, a lot of it's racial injustice. But injustice has been around for a long time. It can be towards like not only the way the person looks, but where they grew up, or how they act, or what disability they have. Injustice can be in a variety of things. So injustice is anything in our world that is unfair, unequal, or not right. And it's something I think we can all agree that we want to do something about, right? We all want it to not be a thing. Like, why is this a thing? So you might see someone getting bullied or being treated poorly, and you may not just know what to do. So maybe you know what I mean. Maybe you've seen like photos of like animals just trapped in a cage, or they're just like hooked up on a pole around in the backyard. Or you've seen, like with you guys today, a lot of you guys are on the social media apps like Twitter. Twitter's a really bad place for this kind of stuff. But you'll see people getting made fun of. Like, you guys ever seen World Star where someone's just getting bullied? Like, that's not fair. Especially when it's a smaller, like when it's a smaller kid. Like, when I was young, I was a smallish kid, and I got made fun of this for a lot, being small. And it sucks. It really sucks. But some other stuff you guys might have seen was, or maybe you heard someone make fun of another person for where they grew up, the neighborhood they're in, because their house isn't as big, or they don't have a family dog, or they're the only sibling, or maybe they're the youngest out of many siblings. And people are like, you're that way, haha, but they can't control that. They can't control how many siblings they have, or how many, or where they live, like where they grow up. Like, when you're a kid, you can't decide that stuff. That's up to your parents and what they can afford. And so, no matter what the injustice is, I think it's important to see that it's happening around us, whether we want to ignore it or not. The more opportunity we have to ask questions about what we're seeing, as we're seeing injustice, the more we see it, the more opportunity we have to ask questions about it, right? That's just common sense. The more you see stuff, the more questions you're going to have, right? So I think we can all agree that we probably had a lot of the same questions when it comes to injustice. Having questions is such a good thing because it encourages us to find answers and learn more about what's unfair and wrong in the world. We might have questions like, why is this happening? Why is this happening in my school? Why is this happening to my family? Why is this happening to me? Why is it happening to my friends? Or why isn't anybody trying to stop this? Why does it seem like nobody's doing anything? To be honest, I've asked the same questions. But when it comes to injustice, my questions always seem to come back to one huge question. The hardest question for me to understand or find an answer to is, this might be a big one for you, if God is so great and strong and loving and so powerful, why isn't he doing anything? Why isn't God just doing miracles like he used to? We see people getting straight up just beaten in the streets, and it's like, God, why aren't you there? Why aren't you working in that situation? But even saying that out loud, you guys are probably like, yeah, I've had this question too. But it's like, we're in church, right? We're not supposed to ask that kind of question, right? After all, he's God. If we don't understand what he's doing, we just have to accept it, right? Or maybe you're like, yeah, that's what I keep asking, and I've never said it out loud, but you've wondered the same thing in your mind, how can things like racism and poverty and animal abuse and hunger and crime and discrimination exist in a world that God has power over. If he can do anything he wants, why wouldn't he just do something all the wrong why wouldn't he do something about all the wrong we see in the world? Why wouldn't he just change that? Like, it's unfair. So maybe you're new to this whole faith stuff, right? So you're not really sure what to think about the question. But you do know that there are injustices happening around you in the world, or in your community, in your school, or even in your own life, or to your family. And if that's you, I'm so sorry that you're experiencing that. And it matters a lot that we're going to keep talking about it. We got to keep bringing it up, Something never gets fixed if people don't acknowledge it. And I think that's what we've been doing a lot. We've been not acknowledging it. We haven't been talking about it. That's why it's important for you guys to talk about it in your life groups. Because if you're experiencing it, we want to help you not experience it. Because it sucks. Everyone's going to admit that it sucks. And so I say that for some of you, it may be the reason that you aren't sure about God. After all, he seems silent or like he isn't there as these injustices are happening all around the world in your own life. No matter how this question makes you feel, here's one thing I want you to be sure of. It's okay to ask questions, guys. God can handle your questions. While he is big and powerful, he can handle your questions. He wants you to pursue him. He wants you to talk to him. Have you guys ever, probably heard a sermon from, Stephen or Sam, where it's like, God loves hearing from you, even if you're just straight up yelling at him. That's how much God loves us, is that even if we're, straight up cussing him out. I don't advise that, but you're just talking to God. Whatever words you're using towards God, he wants to hear from you because you're his child and he loves you abundantly. So he isn't afraid of your questions. And honestly, I think he wants you guys to ask them more, right? Because asking questions is part of what helps us discover more about God and who God really is. It's what helps us get to the truth. And trust me, we're not the only ones asking big questions about God and injustice. Believers, thinkers, writers, and scholars are all asking these questions, and they're trying to find answers, but I think there's no easy answer to this. There's no easy way to answer it. Because once we've seen injustice and we know somebody needs to do something, but why does it sometimes feel like God is doing nothing, right? Maybe you've assumed that God doesn't care. Maybe you assume certain people just have things easier than others. Maybe they're just more privileged. You assume these things about people. And maybe you think it's because somehow God is letting it happen that way. Maybe some people just have harder times in life, and God says, oh, well, good luck. Good luck out there, there's nothing I can do about it. Thankfully, we don't have to guess or assume where God stands in all of this. We don't have to wonder how he feels about injustice. We don't have to guess about what God is really like. We don't have to, we can just look at his son and what he did in the Bible. That's why the Bible is so important, because we can just see how God is from the Bible. And it's super cool because we get to learn what our Father's like. And so, several people, I messed up. We can look at his son, Jesus, who is the best way to see what God is really like. Several people who knew Jesus personally and hung out with him took the time to write down what they saw and heard, so that people like you and me can get a better understanding of what he's like. So today we're going to take a look at the eyewitness account of Matthew, a book written by one of Jesus' closest followers. Matthew, the book of it's often known as the book of Matthew or the Gospel of Matthew. But no matter what you guys call it, Matthew hung out with Jesus and knew what he was about. So maybe that's why he took the time to write down the things he saw. In this story, here's what it said in Matthew 9:35. It says, Jesus traveled through all the towns and villages of that area, teaching in the synagogues and announcing the good news. I'm going to be honest, I was really nervous about that word, synagogues, but we're going to keep going. Announcing the good news about the kingdom, and he healed every kind of disease and illness. So during his ministry on earth, Jesus spent a lot of time traveling to tell people about God, and in doing that, Jesus talked about a lot of different things that God cared about. Things like being fed, or people being fed or released from captivity, or the poor being served and the children being cared for. In other words, Jesus was talking about justice, the opposite of injustice. And so, but Jesus didn't stop there. He also did a lot of different things to help those who were in need around him. He healed and helped the people like everywhere he went. Back then, Jesus had something to do and say about injustice. The scripture continues to say in Matthew 9:36, if you are writing notes, when Jesus saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were confused and helpless, like sheep without a shepherd. So this is so important. Jesus didn't just see the people around him and move on. He did things to help them, but he didn't just act to help them because he had to. He helped them because he cared. He had compassion for the people around him, and that compassion motivated him to act, to help, to do something. And that's what he wants us to do. He wants us to respond and act, not just because we should, but because we care. And see, Jesus showed us what God is like when it came to injustice. So he gave us a model to follow. So the first, Jesus saw the injustice. What's cool is that he didn't just see it, he looked for it wherever he went, and he helped others see it too. And when he saw injustice, Jesus cared. So if you're ever wondering, God is pro-justice. In fact, hundreds of years earlier, he said through the prophet Isaiah. So in Isaiah 61:8, it says, "For I, the Lord, love justice." So if you have a question, and there's your answer. If God really cared about injustice, it says it right there in the Bible itself. So we know that God loves justice, we know that he sees it, and we know that he cares. But that still doesn't totally answer our question, does it? I mean, if he cares so much, why isn't he stopping it? Why doesn't God just do that whole miracle thing like I was talking about before? Why doesn't God just do the whole miracle thing that he was good at back then? And why doesn't he just do something? I think our answer is actually that last part of the verse of Matthew. If you want to read it again, it says, can you pull up the Matthew verse again? It says in the last part, so the verse says, when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them because they were confused and helpless. Like sheep without a shepherd, he said to the disciples, the harvest is great, but the workers are few. So emphasis on that last part. The harvest is great, but the workers are few. Who are the workers? Us. But back in the day, he had to kind of relate it to the people he was around, because a lot of them were farmers. And so, he motioned that, hey, you have all these crops and all this vegetation that you have, but very few farmers. And God's kind of showing us, like, hey, while there's a lot of injustice happening, there's few of us that are doing anything about it. And I don't think that, you're too young or too ignorant or, come from a family that didn't really deal with it, or I don't really understand how injustice works. And so I don't think that should be an excuse. Whoever you are, you can be a worker. You can fight the injustice. I almost fell off stage. Ignore that. So you're probably asking, what can we do? What work needs to be done then? Well, first, we can start by asking God to help change our minds. So maybe you need God to help change your mind about who he is, or for so long you've thought that he doesn't care about injustice. You believe that he was silent or only works and blesses certain people. For you, a great first step would be ask God to help you change the way you see him. So you guys should ask God to show you that he not only sees injustices, but he cares a lot about it and the people who are hurt by it. Ask him to show you where he's at work, and when it comes to injustice, how you can be a part of what he's doing. So the truth is, when we ask God to show us how we can be a part of it, what he's doing about injustice, he'll show you something in the world that just might move you to action by figuring out what injustice in the world breaks your heart. You'll move one step closer to being a part of God's plan to do something about injustice. Or maybe for you, you need God to help you change your mind about what it means to follow him. You thought faith was about singing songs or showing up at church, or following Jesus also means caring about what he cares about. A great first step would be to ask God to help you see more what it looks like to follow him, to start caring about what he cares about. Or maybe you need his help to change your mind about other people. You need help to change the way you see other people, because if you're honest, sometimes you struggle to care about injustice you see happening around you. You guys struggle with, like, you see someone getting bullied down the hall and you're just like, someone will take care of it. That's someone that's supposed to be you. If you guys see someone being treated unfairly and you think, nah, the teacher will take care of it, or someone will go tell a teacher, that someone is you. Don't push that off onto someone else. Because I know from experience that when you push off God's calling, he's going to take it away. And you're like, God, why aren't you moving in me? Why aren't you doing stuff? Why aren't you giving me words or calling? Because you weren't faithful with the little. You weren't faithful with that small act. You weren't faithful with, telling a teacher or standing up for that kid or standing up for that person. So why is he going to give you more if you weren't faithful with the little? So maybe you guys struggle with having compassion for others who are different from you. A great first step for that would be to ask God to change the way you see others, to help you see them with his compassion and heart. And then I think we need to start asking different questions. Instead of asking, where is God? And we can ask things like, what does God think about the person or the situation? What are God's people doing to right this wrong? Why do I listen to, or who do I listen to in order to learn more about this injustice? What is God calling me to do to help? How can God use me? God is doing something about injustice. And questions like these will help us join in that work for him. It will help us be a part of the answer. So let me close by asking you this. What injustice in the world do you guys care about? Which one moves you and makes you want to act? What do you see in the world around you that makes you want to do something to make it right? Is it racism or untreated illnesses or another student who's getting bullied? Or maybe you have a heart for animals and you want to do something about the injustice with animals and how they're getting abused and just mistreated, because they live on this earth too. It's not just us. And so I want to encourage you guys to share it with your small group today. We created small groups to be a safe space for you guys to talk about what is going on in your life and encourage each other to grow in your faith. So today, talk about the injustice that you see. Share what you care about, and then encourage each other to see that God cares too. And he created you to be a part of the answer. What if the Christians at your school or in your neighborhood were the most compassionate and kind and brave and vocal about injustice? Imagine that. Imagine like a whole community just caring about each other, caring about what's happening in our world. So, because God is doing something in justice, let's do something as well. Let's take action as well. So, I'm going to dismiss you guys to small groups, and don't be afraid to talk about it. Don't be afraid to talk about, if you're not directly affected by injustice, that's perfectly fine. You don't need to be affected by injustice to do something about it. And, that should motivate you to learn about it, to ask questions about it. So, all right, guys, you guys are dismissed to your small groups. We have the girls in here in the fireside, and then the gentlemen in the lobby and the mezzanine. So, yeah, go kill it. Awesome. Thanks, Maya and Kayla.